Okay, good morning. We are working on starting chapter 8, the Civil War. So we're going to see, we've learned about the Civil War in the past. We've heard of the Civil War. We have ideas about the Civil War. We're going to find out how Minnesota ties into the Civil War. Remember, we just had become a state in 1858, and then, there's all this arguing and contention. Yes, Peyton.
Wasn't Minnesota like a big part of the Civil War?
I don't know if they were necessarily a big part, but they were the first group that signed up, that volunteered to send soldiers. So I think that was kind of our claim to fame, is because we had our representatives in Washington at that time when the war was declared, and so we were the first ones to sign up and say, our state will send soldiers. So we're, like I was saying, we're going to find out other key things about Minnesota, how the Civil War affected us. We're way up north, the farthest north we can get, and the war was happening a lot in the South. So we're going to see the connections that we have with that. So the first key term for this chapter is abolitionist. Who is an abolitionist? Right?
Someone who wants to end slavery.
Someone who wants to end slavery. So if you think of the word abolish, if we want to abolish something, it means to end it, to stop it. So an abolitionist comes from that word. It's the person who wants to stop something. And with slavery, with the Civil War, the abolitionists wanted to stop the slavery. Secede. What does it mean to secede? Colin?
It's to get out of the union.
Yeah. So the technical definition was to withdraw from an organization or a country. So Colin's right. The people that seceded, the states that seceded, are the ones who wanted to leave the United States. They wanted to leave the Union and make their own country. So when you secede from something, you're withdrawing, you're breaking off, and you're starting your own thing, your own organization, your own country. You want to be independent and separate from what you had been a part of. Union. Now, we've heard the word union lots of times. The union is the joining together of things. But how is union used with the United States of America? Paul?
It's like the northern states that created Civil War.
Yeah, that's how we referred to the northern states. They were the Union. So the Union is the United States of America. And it was used in reference to the northern states during the Civil War. So the Union is the United States of America. So we are all united. We are all part of the Union. We had states that wanted to secede and leave the Union. So they came to call the states that stayed the Union. Instead of saying the United States of America, they shortened it and said Union. The Union soldiers fought against who? Naveen? The Confederate soldiers. So we see Confederacy is our next key term. So the Union soldiers are the ones who stayed in the Union, who are part of the United States. The Confederate soldiers are the ones who fought for the Confederacy. So the Confederacy is the 11 states that seceded from the Union during the Civil War. Also called the Confederate States of America. North America is our continent, so they can still use that word America, but instead of being part of the United States, they were the Confederate States. Oh, you didn't get one? Sorry. Did anybody else not get a key terms paper? So it's very important that we know the difference between the Union and the Confederacy. So Minnesota was the 38th state, and we had just joined in 1858. I'm not sure how many states joined after us before the Civil War, but if 11 states broke off, that's under a third of the states that tried to break away to form their own. So we still had the majority of the states in the Union, and it was just those 11 breaking off. So we're going to see why we stayed and why they wanted to leave. Emancipation Proclamation. How many of us have heard of that?
I just don't know what it is.
Okay. Some of us know the term. We've heard that term. We go, ooh, I've heard that, but what does it mean? So we're going to learn about that. It's very big with the Civil War unit because it happened during the Civil War. So the Emancipation Proclamation is an order that was issued by U.S. President Abraham Lincoln What do you think he's saying in it?
The Gettysburg Address.
Not that, that's a different thing. Gettysburg Address,
Oh,
an address is a speech that you're giving. So the Gettysburg Address is the speech that he gave. Andrea?
That the people in the Confederate States, like the slavers, the slaves who were free.
Yes. So it's a proclamation that he gave on January 1st, 1863. And a proclamation is when you are proclaiming something. So think about the third luminous mystery, the proclamation of the kingdom of heaven. Jesus was declaring the kingdom of heaven. So the Emancipation Proclamation he was declaring the emancipation of the slaves. Emancipation means freeing. So they were emancipated, they were freed. So he declared an order issued by U.S. President Abraham Lincoln on January 1st, 1863. It announced that the enslaved people in the rebelling states the rebelling Confederate States were free. Why was it just declaring the enslaved people in the Confederate States to be free? Paul?
Well, because the northern states didn't really have slavery or want slavery.
The northern states had already declared them free. So the northern states had already said, you know what, we don't want slavery. The southern states that seceded were the ones that say, no, we still want to hold on to slavery. Why? Who knows why they wanted to keep slavery? Nadine?
It was like most of their economy.
Which means what? It was their economy, but tell me a little more.
Them working on like the plantations, like the cotton.
Yeah, they worked on those cotton plantations. So people had slaves come in and do the farm work, and they didn't have to pay them. They just had to give them a place to live and some food to eat. They didn't have to pay them. So it was a big part of their economy. And if the slaves were freed, then they would have to pay for labor. And how could they afford that? Andrea?
Also, since it's like most of their economy, if they were like set free, if they didn't have a place, like, less rich. The people
They would
that
be
owned-
what?
The people that owned the plantations, because of the slaves being freed, they would not have as much income.
Right, because they would have to pay for labor instead of having the free labor. Colin?
Wasn't there like a machine that was invented to like help?
Yep, Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin.
Yeah.
And so that helped. So machines we know can save time and money because you don't have to pay for that labor. So that did help. That will come into play. But that was not a reason why they wanted to keep slavery. That would be a reason why it would be okay to let slavery go. A lot of people still had the false notion that because they looked different, they came from a different place, they had a different culture, that they were less than. And that the white people had to save them, had to take care of them, had to, some people thought they needed to take care of people of color because they looked different. And so they weren't smart enough to take care of themselves. We know now that is utterly untrue. Some people thought that, hey, it's like some people thought about the American Indians. They're different than us. They're uncivilized. They don't know better. We don't have to treat them well. They're, 4/5 of a person? They're not a full person. We don't have to give them all the rights that we would give to a white person. Molly, what were you going to add?
Some people thought they were like property to them,
Mhm.
like you would buy slaves.
Yeah, like they treated them like animals, like they're farm animals. We're going to buy the horses to work on the ranch. We're going to buy the slaves to work in the fields. And so they thought of them like people take care of their farm animals because they work for them and they provide stuff, but they didn't think of them as people. They thought of them as their property. They thought of them as something that's going to work for them, not a person. Andrea?
I think the slaves, not the slaves, the slave owners cared more about their industry.
It depends. That some might have, there's a lot of different people and you can't lump everybody into all being the exact same. Is that the only reason that they wanted to secede from the Union? No, there were other reasons. Okay, so when people say, oh, the Civil War wasn't about slavery, it wasn't just about slavery. And they're right. There was a lot of reasons why these 11 states wanted to leave the Union. One of them was they wanted more independence as a state. We learned last chapter about federalism, how the national government has some power and the state governments have power. They wanted more power for the state governments, less power for the federal government. And they didn't like how the federal government was telling them that they had to change. They didn't want to be told that they needed to do this. They wanted it to be their choice. So that was a big part of it, was they wanted more state independence versus the federal control. There were some other things that factored in. Those are the two biggest reasons that I've heard about. that played a part in the Civil War. We have one more key term, amendment. What is an amendment, Paul?
It's like a government document, like a change.
Yeah, it's the change to that government document. So amendment is a change to a government process or document. What the amendments that we talk about with the United States, what document are they amending? What document are they changing?
Or what?
We have amendments. And the first, we're going to talk a little bit more. What document, government document, are the amendments here in the United States changing? Colin? The U.S. Constitution. We learned about the Constitution last chapter. There's the federal Constitution, and then there's the state constitutions. So an amendment is amending the Constitution. The Constitution is how we're going to run things. Naveen?
Oh, is it still banned today?
I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up when I'm done. So the first 10 amendments to our Constitution, does anybody know what those are called?
7 amendments.
The first 10 amendments, they have a special name. No?
Bill of Rights.
It's the Bill of Rights. So the Bill of Rights, I was thinking you would remember it, Colin, because I know I taught you it last year. The Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments, and then there's a lot more tacked on after that. Giving people the right to vote, giving women the right to vote. There's the one that prohibition, where they outlawed alcohol, and then when they allowed alcohol again, there's quite a variety of amendments on what they're changing and what they're allowing. A lot of it is giving more rights to people. It was around the same time. I think Prohibition came first, and then the Great Depression hit. But I think Prohibition, because the Great Depression started in 1929, and I want to say Prohibition was before that. It started before, and then I think it ended in the middle of the Depression.
No smoking, no drinking.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. So with the end of our key terms here, we're going to continue a little bit more discussion about the Civil War, but I'm going to say goodbye to our friends at home. Thankfully, the majority of us are back, and we're hoping everyone else will be back soon. We hope that you are doing well and you are feeling well, and we hope to see you soon and have a wonderful first day of Catholic Schools Week.